going after them, except if you are in your own home. You don't have to retreat in your own home. This all happened at a truck which has right behind the front seat, it's one of these huge trucks, has a living quarters where indeed the defendant lived most of the time. He was a truck driver. Had a microwave, it had a refrigerator, had a bed, and that's where he lived. So, Jim, what do you think of the defense? Here's a man who is in his home, and so he doesn't have to retreat. He can shoot to kill.
Also, the law says if you're committing a felony, a forcible felony, in this case they're saying a burglary, by entering into the truck, he has a greater latitude to use deadly force. So it's really a dual purpose. But I think what the defense is doing is trying to open up a technical argument, because if they get some kind of nullification, you can't stand up to the jury saying, I want a not guilty because I have a nice guy. You pitch the technical and hope that they go for the practical.
Laura, do you think there's any danger when you have a broad, look, this guy deserved to be killed under these circumstances, nullification, is there any danger to the defense that it's going to really undercut that sort of theme that appeals to the senses with a technical defense?
Yes, I do, and I think the prosecution will argue the facts, and they're going to take away the emotional appeal, and I think they should argue the facts. I mean, just a second ago you asked Jim, what about the fact that this truck was really this man's home? Well, I think the prosecution's going to argue it's a truck, it's not his home, and this wasn't in his truck. This defendant got out of his truck, pulled out his gun, fired 4 or 5 shots, waited, and then fired 4 or 5 more shots. This was not in his home. This was right there out on the street.
Well, it's going to be interesting to hear, because I would think that although these defenses are being suggested along the way, I'll bet you when they get to arguing them, they're going to stick with those broad themes of whether or not this was justified because of the kind of person the deceased was. We'll take a break, and then we'll be back with